Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I don't need to use the microphone. I'm not used to the microphone, and I'm used to this kind of big classes. I'm a teacher in the Technical University of Denmark, and I'm teaching engineering design and product development. And I'm doing research on how people design things. So this topic is very relevant to me. I have a question before we move on. We heard the maker movement a little bit from Fleming. Do you think it's a hype?
No.
No? How many of you think that it is actually not as big as we hear on the news and we read on the internet? Do you have any doubts? Is it gonna be here forever?
Yes.
I hope so. We hope so. But I mean, those kind of questions I had in my mind when I started doing research on this topic. It sure is getting a lot of traction on the internet. This is a graphic from Google Trends. You can see after year 2009. The keywords on Fab Labs, hackerspaces, and makerspaces came a bit later on, but nonetheless, you can see the trends that's going with really steep curves up to 2013. So there's certainly some news value out there, some, so to speak, hype, and some interest. But is it going to stay there forever? That's the question, I think. The next graphic I want to show you is called Gartner's Hype Cycle. Gartner is a company, an IT consultancy company, who does this study every year, and they map all kind of different technologies that you hear every day on the internet and on newspapers, and see if they're hypes, and if they're hypes, in which stage of the hype curve or the hype cycle these technologies are located. So there are actually 5 stages in a hype cycle. The first one is the innovation trigger. So you hear a lot about, you start hearing about these new technologies. And then comes the peak of inflated expectations. So everyone starts talking about a certain topic. This year it's apparently the big data, the wearable user interfaces, and this one is the interesting one, consumer 3D printing, which I find one of the key constituents of the maker movement. It is one of the biggest elements of digital personal manufacturing. And as you say, Gartner company, which is actually quite a trusted one, says that right now we're at the peak of the hype of 3D printing. What will happen? Their expectation is that within the period of 5 to 10 years, if it manages to survive this downfall, it will come to the slope of enlightenment, and we will see third and fourth and fifth generations of 3D printers, and it will become successful. So, under the light of this information and load of knowledge on the internet, I was more or less sure that this is not going to maybe stay that long. But what I saw afterwards was this website called Thingiverse. How many of you know the website? Quite a lot of you. So I'm not going to explain what it is, but it's basically an online repository of objects. And it came from this company called MakerBot when they started selling 3D printers in, I think, 2009, 2008. They decided, okay, the way Apple became successful was with their iPods and iPhones was they invented iTunes. So we have to do something similar, and this is the result of it. Thingiverse, where the users can share and upload and use the repositories for their own use, and they can upload all kind of things from a snowman, little ornaments, to functional products and prototypes. So what I decided to do was I decided to scrape the old data on this website. When I did this first time, it was last year I think, there are about 40,000 objects. I did the same exercise this year. when it became legal. Actually, it was a bit illegal what I did last year, but when I did it again this year, the numbers basically blew me away. This is the graph that shows the number of product submissions, of design submissions per month, and you can see the extreme hike on the number of submissions from this year and on. There are many reasons to it, because maybe there are the 3D printing became quite cheap and available everywhere. People got used to the idea of sharing the objects and so on, but this at least gave me an hope and gave me an idea that this is not gonna go away. It's not another kind of hype, because there is user traction. People actually are buying the idea of printing 3D things at home, or at fab labs like this, or at shared labs, shared locations. So this was one of the things that convinced me that the maker movement was here to stay. The other one is the next logical thing was to actually to look at the actual social network. This website is essentially a social network of products or objects. So what you're looking at right now is, I think it's the biggest so-called connected component within the Thingiverse universe. There are around 1,000 objects, and all these objects in one way or the other have a connection with each other. They are either derived from each other, or they're mixed with each other, they are hybridized with each other, and several products came out of different ancestors. There's some really useless stuff like Stephen Colbert's face scan. It is fun, it is interesting to print, and it's interesting to mix his head with an iPhone holder or something like that. But what I was mostly interested in is functional objects and functional prototypes. And what I tried to go after this, I tried to scrape the data a little bit more, and there comes the most interesting part for me. This is the big object in the middle, the yellow plastic object, is a part of a 3D printer, which was designed all the way back in, I think, 2008. And all the arrows that's pointing to that yellow one are the children of this object. So you can see how an object evolves in this open environment. So someone likes the idea, they make their own. And some of the ones that are derived afterwards become more popular, and someone else makes a derivation of that product. And then sometimes it is hybridized with other products, completely different designs sometimes similar things, and people design new products just by getting inspiration from two other people that he or she has never met. And I traced this, and it was quite interesting for me as a researcher to see that in a matter of months, a few months, you can see a product development cycle of 11 objects, or let me say it another way. You can see that there has been 11 iterations of a single product idea, only in a matter of months or two. At D2 we do a lot of collaboration with industry, and the best I've seen until now was that they could release another version of a product with a very incremental innovation, maybe in a year, if it's a physical product. So this was basically, again, mind-blowing. And it basically convinced me that the maker movement is not a hype. And I hope my line of thought also gave you an idea, or gave you an indication that this thing is going to here and it's going to stay. So, being convinced with that, I decided to look at the maker movement in Denmark. We had, together with Matthias, he's unfortunately not here today, who was a researcher in the DTU, we looked at we had three aims when we started this study. One, to characterize the maker movement and its intersection with fab labs and makerspaces. Two, analyze how the maker movement is manifested in Denmark. And three, what kind of business models exist right now here in Denmark, and what are their potentials, what are the challenges. I'm not going to go through the definition of what maker movement is. There are quite a few codes and quite a few definitions, but it is called to be a new industrial revolution. It is using new and disruptive technologies to create novel things. It is a wide variety of activities, from traditional crafting to high-tech electronics. As you all know, it is about 3D printing, laser cutting, sewing, vinyl cutting, even biohacking. It can be classified as a part of maker movement. So, in rough terms, there are 4 constituents or 4 common patterns, 4 institutes that you can find in the global maker movement. The first one is Fab Labs. It is emerged from MIT, from a course, and it's based on a set of digital fabrication tools which are common in Fab Labs, so it's quite easy to change and exchange information and share the design files, share the information and so on. And it's governed by MIT, so if you want to be a chartered member of Fab Lab, you need to prove that you have this and that, so on. The second element is hacker spaces or maker spaces. There's a bit of a controversy about the name in here, but nonetheless, these are community-operated physical spaces where people can just meet and work on their projects. There's another phenomenon called tech shops. We don't hear that much about them in here because they're basically based in the US. They are open workshops that run in a gym subscription model. So you pay, I think right now it's around $175 per month to be able to access the workshops. But on the other hand, it's a commercial company, so they keep very good care of their products, their machine park and their facilities. So you basically use a gym to be able to print and cut your materials and tools. And the final one is 100K garages. Their ambition is to create 100,000 garages in the US. Again, this is a US organization. It's a network of distributes manufacturing shops that produce the user's designs for a fee. So it's basically a workshop that works for you. And if you want to put them on a map, on a 2D affinity diagram, so to speak, Fab Labs are a bit more on the generative side, whereas the 100K garages is a bit more on the reproductive side. And the other dimension is the infrastructure. The hacker spaces are more project-oriented. It's people coming together and finding a garage or finding a loft. And tech shops, they're more governed by the infrastructure. It's a company. It's an organization that decides how the things should be. So, after this brief introduction to the elements of the maker movement, I can show you the timeline in Denmark. Right now, how many makers, spaces, Fab Labs, and other organizations do you think exist in Denmark right now?
5.
Well, you can look at the graph, it's 15. Right now it's 15. And again, if you remember the height curve, this is the new Fab Labs and hacker spaces that emerged in Denmark within the last year. More than half of the spaces or places or organizations emerged within the last year, more or less, which is quite interesting. The next thing we did was to map them. I actually have a physical copy of it here as well. And if you're coming from a Fab Lab or a makerspace, if you can come and contact me, and maybe I can give you a physical copy to put up on your Fab Lab or hackerspace. The interesting thing in here is the concentration of the spaces, of course. They are mostly located around the capital region. It also reflects the population density, of course, but the other reason for it is the institutes. So number 1 and number 2 is DTU affiliations. 3, 4, they are the oldest places in Denmark, actually. Hylotron and Lavitat. And then we have Republican which is a bit of a different concept, but quite very similar, still quite similar. Number 6 is Valby Kulturhus, or I think it's also called Copenhagen Fab Lab. There's one in Tastrup by Technologisk Institute. Roskilde University just opened their Fab Lab to public, at least, in November. We have the Fab Lab Næstved or Fab Lab Denmark in Næstved. We're here in Odense, number 10, right in the middle. Fab Lab Innovation in Kolding, I think it's called IBC, Denmark. In Vejle we have Spindeli, I don't know, sorry for my bad Danish. Aarhus, we have Open Space Aarhus. And in Aalborg we have 2 organizations, they are quite related to each other. I think they're called Hal9K and Platform 4. So this is the map of the Makers of Denmark. How many users do you think we have in Denmark right now? How many people use these facilities? And for those who don't know, the population of Denmark is I think 5.5 million. So how many users do you think we have in the whole country? We have 15 locations, and some of them are affiliated with big organizations like DTU and WUK and here. So how many people do you think we are addressing to? Some guesses? 450. That's a pretty accurate guess. 3,000.
20.
20. We have more than 20 people in here, so it's 20,000. Yeah.
2,200.
It is pretty close, actually. This is based on, of course, the feedback from all these places. That's the part I forgot to mention. We made a survey with all these places and asked them what do you have in your Fab Lab. Do you have this and do you have that? How many people use the facility? How much does it cost to be a member and so on? And based on their feedback, and you can take it maybe with a bit of a grain of salt, but the total number is close to 1,700. A question?
How do you define a user?
We asked them how many active users do you have per month?
People who return, not just people who show up once. So it's people who are involved in the lab.
No, it's people who use the facilities over a month. So the level of involvement, of course, depends on from facility to
So
facility.
it could be somebody who just showed up once.
Yeah, that's why some of the numbers are maybe a bit high. But all in all, we are talking about, even if this is a conservative guess, all in all, we're talking about maximum 2,000 people. Let's say 3,000 people. So that's perhaps less than number 1. But I think I'm going to come to that in a second, actually. So the other thing we asked was the equipment. And we asked, do you have a laser cutter? Do you have a 3D printer? How many of them do you have? Do you have a laser scanner? A large CNC router for cutting big plates and so on? A CNC mill, a vinyl cutter, sewing machines, and electronics tool bench. And some fab labs or some places they're quite rich, and some of them have sparse facilities, and some of them are quite specialized, like D2 Fab Lab. It is called a Fab Lab. It's actually not a Fab Lab. It is it's the Scandinavian's largest 3D printing facility, actually, the public-wise. We have a lot of 3D printing tools, but nothing else. So it's specialized for additive manufacturing. But yeah, we're going to come to that in a second as well. And then the structure. And for this, I want to go to this website. So it's a bit of a shameless plug, but we actually bought the domain name called Makers of Denmark. It is a really sparse website right now, but it says what is this study is about. We have a report in the making. It takes a long time. It became really long, but I hope it will be available soon. You can download the map from here actually, and you can see the online version. It's a Google map, and then the makers. So this is the place that I wanted to come. We defined the places in 3 categories: Fab Labs, maker spaces, and other. And they're also divided in terms of the region. So if I can see, these are our Fab Labs in Denmark. We have the one in Valby, we have the one in Tastrup, one in Næstved, in Roskilde University here, and IBC. we have the maker spaces. There are namely 3 of them: Leditat, Open Space, Aarhus, and Hell9Key. And they also, the others, they define themselves in different names. And if there are any mistakes, by the way, in here, please contact me so we can fix. We have the Innovatorium. It's actually not called Innovatorium again. Sorry, Mikael. It's called D2 Skylab because someone has the trademark for Innovatorium, apparently. We have D2 Fab Lab, which I talked about. We have Illutron. Its destiny is a bit unclear, I think, right now, because it's a ship and it needs to be towed away from the place that it's towed right now. So I'm not sure what happens to that. We have Republican. It's a commercial facility where you can be a member and you can also use the manufacturing tools and so on. We have Skinderihelme and Platform 4. So this is basically the structure of the places. By the way, if you go to the website and sign up in here, you will be automatically notified when the report is available. So very quickly, if you look at the business models, we have Hell9Key, Open Space Aarhus, Leditat, Illutron, basically run based on their membership fees. And I guess we can also put Republican in here in this category. The fee varies somewhere between 150 kroner and 200 kroner. So it's a rather small fee compared to the tech shops in the US. And I think what is common with these organizations are they're very flat. They are really grassroots. They come from the public, from the people who decide to build whatever, and they came together and set up a makerspace. Then we have top to bottom places, like most of the Fab Labs. The one at D2, the one it's Book. This place might also be named as a top bottom place, I suppose. And there are some special places which are somehow both supported by the organizations they are affiliated with and also receive some funding from other places. But I'm not going to spend more time on this. I have one slide on who are the makers. This is not from our study, but it's a study from Jakub, who's a Finnish researcher doing research on this field. He did a large study, and the takeout from this study is that if you're going to one of the spaces, you're most probably around 30. And you can see, I'm not going to comment on the ratio of the men to women, but you're highly likely to be a man with at least a bachelor's degree. So what are the challenges? I think one of the most biggest challenges is knowledge sharing. And this is why we're here today, perhaps, because all these organizations, they have been existed, some of them for quite a long time. And all the connections, all the interaction with each other are basically ad hoc. It's based on someone who knows someone. And there's no Denmark Fab Lab charter, or there's no central organization that does this kind of stuff. So thank you very much for arranging this day for us. But still, we have a lot of way to go on knowledge sharing. The second thing is performance indicators. It is especially more important for places which are set up from top to bottom. So I'm going to try to be anonymous. So if a big university's rector says that, so we spent this much money on this Fab Lab and whatever space, what comes out of it? That's, I think, one of the important indicators for us to not to fall down through that hype curve, hype slope, so that we can actually maybe show some indicators, how many products that have been printed, how much material that has been used, and how it came out from there and became little success stories. Again, we have a long way to go on performance indicators, and we need to be a bit more creative in this case, I guess, because it is still this movement is still on its infancy. So, but still, it's going to be a problem. Not today, not maybe next year, but within a few years, when the hype kind of goes down, people start to ask why we are spending millions of kronor on these facilities. And the final thing is publicity. 5.5 million people in the country. It is actually a beautiful side country for maker movement to become something. But we still have 2,000 people that are using facilities. In my circles, people who are actually in architecture, in design and similar areas, some of them don't even know that there's actually 6 places around Copenhagen where they can go and use a laser cutter, a 3D printer, a professional sewing machine. So we need to do perhaps a bit more on the populist side as well, so people come and use the places. But that being said, there are also opportunities. Library 2.0, I think, is one of the topics later today. One of my colleagues in CBS, he's an expert on actually social innovation and libraries. And if I quote him, I think around 74% of the whole library users in the world are actually in Western Europe, and a big chunk of it is in Scandinavia, mainly because the library system functions quite well. Every commune has at least one library, and many of them are well equipped. Many of them are trying to be up to date. They offer you PlayStation games and make cozy corners for you and so on. So there is actually room to put a little 3D printer in a corner in a library, or a little laser cutter maybe away from the reading area. But this is something to come as well. And I think Copenhagen Fab Lab, which is situated in the Valby Kulturhus, is a great example of it. The second one is elementary schools. It's actually, I think, quite an important case. Next year, with the education year 2014, the government decided to eradicate 2 classes from, or they decided to merge 2 classes in elementary school system, which is, I think, called needlework. So you learn how to sew, and woodworking, and I think it's going to be called crafts and design. And this class, which is basically spot on for this maker movement, could be a great test case to try and test how we can actually start teaching students, start teaching children from the elementary schools how to use a 3D printer, or how to think in a way that they can design things for a 3D printer. That's one of the things we actually have a challenge at DTU, and I can gladly talk about it later on, because I know we are running out of time. And finally, we have this big initiative called MATE. I don't know how many of you heard about this. It is becoming public really soon. It is I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a pretty big initiative where almost all the universities come together, all the industrial leaders come together, industrial leaders, Lego, Grundfos, to ETS institutes like Technology Institute and Force Technology. And they decided to come up with this initiative where the main aim is, to some extent, how we can save the manufacturing in Denmark, how we can stop the immigration from Denmark to Far East or other countries. And this is, I'm not even sure if this is public, but there are 9 work packages that is coming out from this initiative. And I see that work package 1, which is the intersection of rapid product development and value chain and business systems, is on high-speed product development, which is quite a relevant work package to the maker movement. And the work package 3, which is on 3D printing and new production processes, which is an intersection of, again, rapid product development and enabling technologies, can be a big opportunity for Fab Labs and maker spaces and hacker spaces in Denmark to contribute in the way that they can be a part of shaping Denmark's manufacturing future. I think I have a few more slides, but I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I can gladly answer if you have time.
We'll make time.
All right.
Is it possible to get you a PowerPoint later on?
Yes, sure. Open source. I don't know how we can share it, but yeah,
We'll figure it out.
I'll give it to you. So.
Through Twitter.
Okay.
No, we'll figure it out. We'll make it. I'm also thinking that we're taping the presentation, so we will make some kind of YouTube channel for the presentations.
If I knew I would get a shape. Yes.
The slide you showed with the number of users,
Yeah.
men and women, etc., were they Danish users?
No, it is a global study,
It's a global study. Okay.
and it is from. It's with 250 participants from 72 to 87 different communities. There are a bit more statistics in here, but you can see in the slide. Yes?
So when you say that DTU is not really a fab lab,
DTU Fab Lab.
yeah,
Yes.
you say it's called DTU fab lab, but it's not really a fab lab.
Yeah.
So what, explain?
How would I mean, if I should be completely politically incorrect, it's basically jump on the bandwagon. So it is a name that will give people a context. If we would call it additive manufacturing laboratory, it wouldn't make sense to the general public. So
But do you mean you're not registered fab lab?
no, it's not a chartered member of
Right.
Fab Lab.
But is your ambition to become one?
I don't think so, because we are quite happy being the largest additive manufacturing lab, and it's also related to research. So there are new machines that are being developed in this laboratory that can, I don't know, print in ceramic and print batteries and so on. So its focus will be on additive manufacturing rather than becoming a fab lab. But that being said, all DTU members or anyone who has some affiliation with DTU can basically, it works quite fine. You send your 3D files to an email address and it gets printed for you. So it's a great service. And if you want to use the machines, you can also use the ones, Ultimakers, that are cheap to maintain and cheap to run. But the bigger industrial machines, we have some really expensive ones. You need to have a good reason to be able to print like I don't know, 10 by 10 centimeter, 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter cube Gibbs printer. It costs around 5,400 to be able to print that thing. So there are things that are restricted and there are things that are completely free. I hope it
Yeah,
answers.
yeah.
Yes.
Last question. I'm working here at the Fab Lab. I'm basically taking care of the Fab Lab in here. I just wanted to say that maybe the study of men and women thing is maybe, I don't know, registered a little bit wrong, because when it comes to laser cutting, I think actually we have almost as many women here at least as men.
I think laser cutting is maybe a bit of a special thing, because I live close to the Bellevue Fab Lab, and I've been there quite a few times. One of the biggest customers are, I would say, architecture students or women that come and cut jewelry, I would say.
Yes.
Similar things. I don't know how the situation is, but
Same thing.
it is fine. It is perfectly fine. But I think we need to also find the balance of cutting functional things and jewelry at the same time.
No, I just still consider making jewelry for Etsy or
Yeah.
something like that as being made.
Yeah. I mean, this is not my study, so we can trash it as much as we want. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
If you look at the hype globally, is there a pattern there in any way? United States phenomenon? Or?
This MakerBot Technologies, I can't remember the exact figure, but they got bought by Autodesk. No, Stratasys, sorry. For yeah, there's some good followers over there. I think around $200 million. It's like
400.
okay. How much again?
400.
400 million.
Yeah.
It's even worse. So it becomes also an interest for the industry or for business. So I think that's also another pattern that we're going to see in the near future. More entrepreneurs coming out of maker movement. And I think also that's also what we need in Denmark to show some successful startups that uses these facilities to prototype their designs and products and become successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.